Hi, would you like to switch up your crochet plushies from safety eyes to felt like this? Or this? Or this? Then you should keep watching as I'll show my entire felt cutting process as well as several tips. In this video, I'll be cutting just simple circle eyes, but you can apply these tips for any time you're cutting felt. To start off, I'll show you guys the materials I use when I cut felt. First, obviously, we'll need some scissors. Sometimes I like to use the small scissors, but today I think I'll use the orange ones because these ones are sharper and cut easier. Next is glue. Personally, I don't really think the brand of glue matters too much, just whatever works best for you and what you have on hand. But if you'd like to know the specific brand I use, I like to use Deco Princess glue, but I also like to use hot glue sometimes, which a lot of people like to use when gluing felt to their plushies. The next material I would recommend are sewing pins. This isn't something you need to have, but it'll come in handy for a tip I'm going to talk about later. Lastly, you're going to need some felt to cut the felt for your plushies. I like to use felt scraps from previous projects. Sorry for the promo, but I just recently moved all my patterns and stuff to Ko-fi and upgraded my Ko-fi a bit, so if you would check out any of my patterns, it would be highly appreciated and make me very happy. Okay, now I'll go back to telling you guys my felt cutting process and the tips. My first felt cutting tip would be to cut the overall shape first and then cut the details later. So since we're making eyes, we want them to be the same size, so I like to stack them on top of each other and then cut a circle. It looks pretty uneven right now and not super circular, but that's totally fine because right now we're just getting the overall shape and we'll clean it up in a bit. Second tip, do not cut continuously to make the shape cleaner. When I first started cutting felt for plushies, I definitely wasted a lot of felt by doing this method. I would keep cutting continuously and then I would end up with a super tiny circle for an eye and end up throwing it away. So to avoid wasting felt, I recommend avoiding this method when trying to make your felt neater. And instead, I would recommend doing this, which would be tip number 3. Cut very small pieces around the edges until you get the shape you want. This method can be applied to anything you're cutting with felt. I use this method when cutting a mouth, nose, eyes, blush, or anything really. With the circle I'm cutting now, you can see there are some sharp edges around it, or it looks longer on one side, making it look more like an oval than a circle. So those would be the pieces you would want to cut off, and just keep doing this until you get the shape you want and as many times as needed. For tip number 4, I recommend to flip the felt and cut from the other side. I find that this helps to make it look more even and neat because by flipping it to the other side, you can see any asymmetries more clearly and in turn make your felt more even. Tip number 5 is to look at it from far away. Many times while cutting felt, I find myself having the felt like right in my face, and I'm sure many of you guys can relate too. So to combat this, I like to look at the shape from far away, like an arm's distance from time to time, just to make sure it looks how I want it to. Tip number 6, don't glue immediately and instead test place it first. By doing this, then you can figure out if the eyes look too small or big for the plush. And you can choose how you want the facial features placed. Like if you want the eyes closer together or more far apart, and then after you like everything, then you can glue it. Okay, so the last tip, tip number 7, is to use sewing pins to help keep the felt in place while the glue is drying. I place the sewing pins very close to the edges to try and avoid having the sewing pins stuck in the felt from the glue. It's happened a couple times to me, but it's not impossible to remove it if it happens. But to try and avoid this, I would recommend placing them at the edges of the felt. I like to do this because since plushies are usually round and not a completely flat surface, sometimes while the glue is drying, the felt won't stay down and stick to the surface of the plushie. So I use sewing pins to stick it down and keep it in place. Here's a little bonus if you made it to the end of the video. This isn't really a tip, but more of an extra thing you can add to your felt to make it look softer around the edges. With a sharp object like a needle or sewing pin, you'll repeatedly poke around the edges of the felt to create that soft blur effect, like needle felting. So if you like the look of needle felting, then you should definitely try it out on your next project to add a nice personal touch. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I feel like some of these tips might seem like common sense, but I know if I'd heard them when I first started cutting felt, they would have saved me a lot of time. So I hope they help someone out there too. Thank you again for watching, and I hope this video helped.